Well, it's a great joy and honor to introduce Pastor Geoff Bond, Senior Pastor of the People's Church, located in Cape Town. Also, he is a part of the Assemblies of God National Leadership Board in South Africa. Pastor Geoff, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's good to see your face
Yep.
and good to be in contact with Moscow.
Yeah. So, for starters, how are things in Cape Town right now?
Well, Ramon, at the moment we're under lockdown and things are very tense in South Africa at the moment because while our infection rates are not too high, we've got 1,400 and something confirmed cases and only 5 deaths so far. But the authorities are extremely, extremely worried. And so is everybody else, because we've got high density areas. We've got areas where you cannot drive a motor car in. You can't even ride a bicycle in between the shacks. They're so tight.
Wow.
If the infection gets into those areas, then it'll be mayhem. It'll be very, very serious. So they are determined to not allow this thing to take root in the country. They're doing everything that they can to stop it. So we've got 100% lockdown. So only the supermarkets are open, and they can only sell essential things, uh, food and meat and milk and bread. The farms are still producing. You can still buy petrol and gas, but you can't buy other things. And people are being forced to stay at home. We've got the army and the police are forming roadblocks, and they stop cars to say, where are you going? If you travel from one place to another, you've got to have a certificate that the government gives you, giving you permission to go, unless you're going to buy groceries. So I think they've arrested a lot of people already for being on the roads. But things are very tense and the stakes are extremely, extremely high
Hmm.
for us where we are at the moment. We haven't had church for 2 weeks now,
Hmm.
no church at all. So we've gone online as church.
So the reason the police and army is out, is that because people didn't take it seriously at first?
They did it right from the start. Before, on the night that they announced the lockdown, they announced it on the one night and then they said, you've got 72 hours and then we're locking down. Then nobody can leave. No one can leave their house. No one can leave their town. If you're in the wrong town, you can't return to your hometown. You've got to stay right where you are.
Wow.
And they've blocked off key routes.
Hmm. So you said that there was not a big impact of coronavirus in South Africa so far.
We are the graph is not high yet, and they're determined to keep it that way
Mm-hmm.
because we cannot afford. This is very third world.
Mm-hmm.
South Africa is first world in some sections, but very third world in other sections.
Mm.
And we're 55 million people. We have a tax base of 5 million people.
Mm.
So that just gives you an idea. We've got a huge poverty problem in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good because it's good that you mentioned it, because we will be discussing also later how would you navigate the church if it's located in a third world places. But let's start with your church, the People's Church. How is it doing these days? You already said that for 2 past Sundays you've been doing the online services. How does that feel?
Well, for me, I'm not a techno person. So for me, computers and cameras are not home territory. So I'm the face to face in the same room type of person. That's how I grew up. I'm a computer immigrant, not a computer native. And so I've got challenges. So from that side of things, it sounds funny, strange. Our church has a very big emphasis on warmth and personal contact and pastoral care. And so we've had to find other ways of doing this thing. which we're doing. We're working very hard at doing it. And we've got a number of programs which I can tell you about that as we do online church, we try to keep the warmth into the cyber approach.
As someone who serves on a national level as well, how did the church in general in South Africa responded to this?
The church in general has taken the call very seriously, and we are working together. We're working as teams to care for one another. Some churches are in a very different context to other churches. Some are city churches and suburban churches, and some are high-density churches, and some are very rural churches. When I say high-density, I mean ghettos, shacks, and very, very close quarter living. And rural, that would be people that are illiterate or semi-literate, that don't have electricity, that don't have water. Some of the churches are in those areas as well, and with very bad roads leading to them. And so we are working very hard, the rich to support the poor, and for us all to work together as a team. So we're working hard at that.
How does it look like because we're talking about more about social justice here and just doing something in a social area. Yeah. How does that look like in such strict environment?
The social side, today we had one of the ministers from the high density area get in his pickup truck with a soldier and his permit, and he drove to one of our churches where we've got what we call a hope bag. Those hope bags have in them enough nutrition for 5 days for 5 people to eat. It's not nice food, but it's nutritious food, and to be prepared and cooked. And so we've got 100 of those bags. So for 100 Rand, which is $5, we can feed 5 people for 5 days.
Wow.
With these bags. So he's gone to collect these bags. He's taking them to his church in the high density area. And from there, he's in touch with the community. He will distribute them as he sees fit. The people in the high density areas can't get to the shops because they don't have motor cars. So if they go, they've got to go by combi taxi. And so that's expensive to go to the shops by combi taxi. If they walk to the shops, they can get stopped by the military or by the police. And if they are, some have even been beaten for walking on the streets.
Wow.
They go home. So for them, it's very difficult. So the church is right at the coalface in the area called Kaya Licha, and they are going to be distributing these food bags. And we're hoping, trusting for many, many hundreds of those bags to go to the needy people, to keep them with food.
Wow, it sounds like the church is entering a intense mode in many ways. How long do you think? Yeah.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
We're making this up as we go along. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. And we just are living day by day and solving today's problems today. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks ago, we didn't expect this. Well, we knew something was coming, but we didn't expect this. And so we're having to make it up as we go along. And we're making plans as we go. We're changing our strategies all of the time. When the week before the lockdown announcement was made, the week before, I called all the Connect group leaders, all our cell group leaders together and said, we might not be able to have church. If we can't have church, we'll do it in the cell groups. But 3 days later, that plan had to be scrapped because then they couldn't meet as cell groups. They weren't allowed to leave their houses at all. So then we had to go to the online approach.
Right.
So every week we've got a different plan with a different circumstance.
So there's a lot of flexibility in that sense. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So how do you can you even prognose how long is this gonna be for? or can anyone?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Ours was for the lockdowns for 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
We're now in our 8th day of the lockdown.
Mm.
So at the end of 21 days, depending on what the statistics are doing, they might extend it,
Mm-hmm.
or they might open it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But our economy has ground to a halt.
Mm.
It's got serious. They've got to balance the government, and the government is doing, everyone is full of praise for the way the government has handled it. We've got to give them praise for the way that they've managed it. They've done very well. But they've had to balance the needs of the economy against the needs for health. And it's like walking a tightrope. Too much this way, you fall off. Too much that way, you fall off. So how long the economy can stay shut, I don't know. We've got many people in the church, their businesses have closed down.
Wow.
They can't go to work. They can't carry on their business. Tourism, panel beating. You mentioned many, many businesses. People are just sitting at home and they don't know what they're going to do.
So it sounds like you as a pastor have a lot of work to do, because you have anxious people, you have fearful people, you have people that don't know what tomorrow will hold, especially those who have works, businesses, families to feed, you know.
You know, Ramon, the number one need that I can meet is the need for comfort. The word comfort comes from two Latin words, cum forte, with strength. And so I've got to strengthen the people, and I've got to keep their courage up. So every message that I send, whether it be via WhatsApp, whether it be by our online services, which we've designed and are carrying out, I use my trusty iPhone for the filming. I've got a little tripod. I use Hans for technical support. He has control of my computer from his apartment, where he lives about 6 kilometers away. And so he can help me there a little bit. We have prayer bursts where for 15 minutes at lunch at 12 o'clock, 2 days a week, people type in their requests and we pray for them live over Facebook. All of these things are designed to bring comfort to the people, because the people are afraid. And that's my big opportunity. And it's the big opportunity for the gospel. When people are afraid, they turn to God. And we were afraid. And I'm we've just finished March. So I don't know what April looks like. But I know what March looks like, because I've gone through March already. And so we were afraid that our income was going to go through the floor. No Sunday services, no offerings taken up, relying on people to give via EFTs and via SnapScan, so giving electronically. People being afraid, people saying, I haven't got work anymore, I can't give anymore. So we really expected the church income to go down. The church income went up by quite a chunk in March. April, maybe I'll be singing a different tune. I don't know. But for March, I'm praising God, because God's people have rallied together. They're praying for each other. They're encouraging each other. Something in their spiritual lives has been stirred. And they're turning their eyes to God because they have no other option.
Well, so you're really seeing the change in the community. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am saying that. I'm saying that this is a great opportunity for the gospel. Wendy read a scripture to me this morning in her Bible reading. She read this. It's Acts 17, verse 27. God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far away from each one of us. It's just wonderful to see how God is close to people, but they don't know it until they get into trouble. When they reach out And they find actually God's not far away. He's been there all the time, and they're making contact with him. And so I'm getting messages that are saying, Pastor Geoff, when I saw you on the TV, it was like sunshine came into the home. Or, Pastor Geoff, when I saw you, I just felt so comforted to know. And so the comfort is coming via the electronics into people's homes. So we're finding a whole new way to minister to people. And whether we're going to go back to the old way, of course, we're going to go back to meeting together when the opportunity comes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've got a whole another way of reaching people as well.
How did you feel the first Sunday you had to sit in front of the camera and just had to share your message?
Totally weird. I recorded my first message before the lockdown started. So the lockdown started on the Thursday night. On the Wednesday, they filmed me at the church, and I had a couple of people around me, and they filmed me. It was very awkward. But the Lord showed up, and I could feel the Lord's presence as I was speaking without the congregation there. Then the next one, I did in my study with my iPhone 8 and the dog lying at my feet, sleeping, and nothing, no one else around. And you know what? I felt the Lord come again. It was, God is faithful. And so we're experiencing the faithfulness of God as we are ministering in new ways. I'm 65, so I'm not used to these things, but I'm finding it's very stimulating, and it's like a whole new world that's opened up for me, and I feel rejuvenated by this. This is a challenge, and I'm loving it.
Mm-hmm. How did you change your sermon calendar? I always ask this question different pastors, because I'm interested in how do pastors respond in terms of preaching to this issue.
I've got to have my sermon done by Wednesday. Otherwise, I've got Hans down my neck. Hans is managing this. You know Hans.
Yeah.
Hans is managing everything, and he's making sure that everything happens on time. And so I've got to record it. If it's not finished by Wednesday, I've got Hans to deal with, and send it to him, and he edits it.
What do you preach about? What are some topics you decided to focus on?
This last Wednesday, I spoke about, we're leading up to Easter. Mm-hmm. So I spoke about the Lord's Supper, and I spoke about Jesus' emotions, because we're in an emotional time. And I spoke about how Jesus said this, with desire, I've desired to eat this cup. It's in Luke. The Message version says, you have no idea how much I've longed to have this with you, the longings and emotions of Jesus. And I spoke about how God feels. We're not, the Greeks, the Stoics, they said a God cannot feel, because then a God becomes weak. If you feel, you're weak. But our God feels, and how God has feelings and love and feels betrayal, and these are emotions that God has, and how the emotion comes into communion, and how he broke bread with them, and how Christ comes to us through the communion, how he ministers to us through the bread and through the wine. And so I encourage the people to bring Jesus. It's still going to go out this Sunday. So I don't know what the response will be, but I expect the response to be good. It'll be mom and dad and the kids.
What's the significance of communion, like especially in this season? Because I feel like many Christian practices that we do will become so much more during this coronavirus.
Let me tell you a story. When I was 7 years old, my father was a minister. And we were living in a place called Salisbury. It's now called Harare. It's the capital of Zimbabwe. And so Salisbury, 1961, he got a phone call from the military airport saying that we have got 70 of your missionaries from the Congo. You must please come and look after them. They were British missionaries from the British Assemblies of God. and they'd escaped from the Congo during their upheavals. It's now the DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it's a vast country, still in distress. And they arrived at the airport. Some of them had a rucksack. Some of them had only the clothes that they were wearing. One of them just had a typewriter that they grabbed. They had to grab their things and run for the airplane and get out before they got killed. And these people were in mourning, these missionaries. They said, our life's work is over. It's been finished. Everything's been destroyed because we're no longer there to look after the church. Roll forward the clock for maybe 18 months. When they went back to the Congo, when things had settled down and they were able to go, they found that the church, far from being destroyed, had actually grown. It had grown to over 1,000 churches. And they found that the elders that they'd put in place were taking the people in the dead of night out into the jungle. There they would break bread with them. They would anoint them with oil for their sicknesses, and they would pray for them for their souls. And they would go back into their villages. And while while the country was in absolute political and terrible things were happening, cannibalism, all sorts of bad things were happening, the church was flourishing and growing. That was a time of testing where the missionaries' work was being tested by fire. And because they'd built well, it came out strong. We're in a time now with the coronavirus in Russia and in South Africa and around the world, where what we've been doing up to now is being tested by fire. And we can't meet on a Sunday, and we can't listen to the PA system, and we can't have the band, and we can't have all the things that keep, and the cappuccinos and everything else that keeps church so good. We can't have those things anymore. Now the fire is coming, and we're going to see what we really built. And if the church passes this test of fire, it'll be a glorious time. This time of testing will be a glorious time. And I believe that we are building strongly, and the church will flourish. And so communion, you asked the importance of communion, absolutely vital. It's the core of the church, it's the heart of the church, communion. And what we've built into people, that is what's going to stand. Now it's not the fizz and the pop that's going to keep people strong. It's not the celebrity approach that's going to keep people strong. It's the structure that we put into people, into their hearts and their lives. So what we've built up to now, Ramon, what we built up to now is being tested by this crisis.
So as you look at what's happening today, and you look back on what you've been teaching for the past months or years, what are some things that you wish you would do more and would focus more on? Because there are many things that even I look at myself in our church. We've been telling people all along, church is not a building. Church is not a building. And here, this happens, and as you said, it puts our knowledge and our faith to test. What are some things you feel like you would have emphasized more before the coronavirus outbreak?
This is how I like to look at it. I think all the time, your dad, my father, myself, Peter Watts, the people that you know, they've been putting seed in the ground. And that seed has now got a chance to germinate. We've been speaking about personal prayer for many years, but people haven't been praying. Now all those things, all those seeds that are in the ground, now's the time for them to grow. And people are going to learn how to get comfort from God and get what they need from God by praying for themselves. Mm-hmm. All the years we've been speaking to fathers, saying, fathers, lead your home spiritually, but the fathers are lazy, but they knew it. Mm-hmm. Now is going to be the time. Now is going to be the time. When I stood at my father's bedside, the morning that he died, and I was with him, Wendy and I were with him when he breathed his last breath. And the sense that came over me as I saw, and when he said to me, he's gone, the sense came to me was, I'm it. I'm now the wisest thing that this family has got. And I had to suddenly step up and become what I knew I needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
The church is going to step up now and be what it knew it needed to be all along. But it didn't need to actually do it at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the church is going to mature and it's going to become stronger. And maybe your churches have gone through suffering. Our churches haven't. But now we're going to learn lessons that maybe you've already learned, things that you already know, people that have come from places where there's been spiritual oppression. We've had everything on our side up to now. But now this is a test for us to see how we've been building in South Africa. We call ourselves a Christian country, but that's by name. Now we're going to become it in fact.
Do you think it's a natural tendency for people to forget or not to pay attention to what's being preached or taught?
Of course. Always. Always. That's the way. When you were at school, did you listen to your teacher? Seldom. My mind was always to the final whistle, so the final bell when I could go home and do what I wanted to do. So I know when I'm speaking to the people. Very often, sometimes, I don't know whether I should say this when it's being recorded, but sometimes I can't remember what I preached. Do you think the people remember what I preached? I doubt it. An important thing about how people learn, I think people learn a lot through singing. What they sing, what we sing is so important. That's the thing that they remember. They remember the songs. And so that's why our songs need to have good lyrics, because that's the thing that they don't remember the pastor's words that he labored on for so long, but they do remember the songwriter's words that he labored on for his music. So music is so, so important. And we've got a rich music heritage in the church, better now, stronger now than it's ever been. And so we can thank God for that resource that we have as well.
How do you worship these days? Being totally inside your house and...
With headphones and annoying my wife by singing aloud. No one wants to listen to me sing. But the thing is that it's through the songs. Mm-hmm. And when playing the songs on the worship songs, the worship music, the Lord shows up.
How would the situation look like if we wouldn't have any social media? Because I was reading a couple of days ago about the Spanish flu that happened in the 1918, and I'm just thinking about the young Pentecostal movement that just had a number of years of experience, but that's it. And I think those times put the movement also under the test. How different it would look like. It's just...
I think that the Lord has been gracious to us with all of the technology that we have. I think that it is valuable, it is helpful. And I don't think church can ever go back to being the way it was a month ago.
Yeah.
I think in a few weeks, we have had a total revolution and our reality has completely changed.
Yeah. So you said we talked about technology, and earlier you mentioned the third world areas of your community. So how does that work with them? Because not all of them have the the access to the certain gadgets and phones and smartphones.
Here's the funny thing. Mobile phones are everywhere. In Africa, in South Africa, they are everywhere. The poorest people have a mobile phone. Their technology jumped. You had 1G, 2G, 3G. I don't know if you've got 5G now, but 4G. Well, with us, we went from low tech to high tech, and we jumped all the different stages because we came in so late. And most people, certainly all the people in the high density areas, have got smartphones,
Hmm.
do their banking on smartphones. They can't rely on the banks because the transport's so bad. They can't rely on the telephones because they dig up the copper cables. They can't rely on electricity because the electricity keeps on getting cut off. So they are dependent upon their mobile phones.
Mm-hmm.
Our gardener, who is a refugee from Malawi, he's here illegally. He's not allowed to be here. He sends money via his mobile phone back to his family in Malawi. I don't even know how to do it, but the gardener knows how to do it. So I think that technology is very, very available to the people in South Africa on the ground. I'm not talking about deep rural areas. Those areas I don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like in Russia? Does everyone have a mobile phone?
Especially when we talk about the older people, not all of them. So we had to make sure that those who have push phones or they don't have a TV or an iPad or an iPhone to watch live streams, we made sure that they have it. So we had to go through our files and literally call everyone to make sure they have these things.
Another thing about us where we might be different to you is our demographic is very young. Our life expectancy is not high. And so we are a very young population. And in Europe, I don't know about Russia, but I know that in Western Europe, parts of Western Europe, and in Italy, North Italy, they were saying that the demographic is old. We don't have that demographic.
Mm-hmm. So how is Church United these days? Because I looked on your website, you said, and there's this thing, we belong to each other, and your church says that we want to be a church where people feel this is my home. So since it's not a building, it's a location, what now serves as this glue that connects everyone in the church while being located in different places?
Connect groups. For now, more than ever, I see the importance of connect groups, cell groups. I don't know what you call them, and we call them connect groups, where the congregation is in small pieces. Our biggest challenge has been to minister to people who are not a part of the connect group. Mm-hmm. We've had a big drive to get our database up to date, and to make sure that our records are accurate. But we started that about 6 weeks before, because we saw this coming. We did see this coming, and so we weren't caught completely unaware. And so we worked hard to get our database up to date. And we are, I think, I don't know what the statistic would be, but I think that I'm pretty confident that we've got many people on our database. Rather than significant, we don't have significant gaps on our database. So we're relying on connect groups to care for small groups of people. It's been a very important strategy for us. And I'll tell you what's keeping people together. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 o'clock our time, we have what we call a prayer burst on Facebook Live, where Wendy and I hosted it this Thursday, Hans and Laura hosted it on Tuesday. Prior to that, Wendy, Hans and I hosted it. So people phone in with their requests. I've been amazed that struck a chord, where people are phoning in from all over the world with prayer requests. And that has been something that's managed to keep us together as well. We've got a prayer team, so people can write in their prayer requests, put it on the website, and we've got a prayer team that prays for those people as well. And then we give them a message, send them a Facebook message saying we've prayed for you.
In terms of prayer, I would assume it's probably difficult to build up faith in people, because you don't want to just pray out of pessimistic attitude and that everything is bad, but you want to also build up faith. What are some insights that you have uncovered during this journey with coronavirus and in relation to prayer and faith?
I think that the greatest spur to prayer is need. And I think people are feeling a need. So I'm finding it easier now to pray than ever before. I think that people are feeling desperate, and so they are so open. I'm just finding that their hearts are just so open to prayer at this time. Their hearts are soft, not closed, and so I think that it's not a case of we ought to pray. We ought to pray. It's a case of show me how to pray. I need to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And scripture. I mean, Scripture is such a powerful motivator to pray. Cast all your burdens on Him because He cares for you. That's in 1 Peter. The most underlined verse in the Bible, according to Kindle, for the Kindle Bibles, is Philippians. Don't be anxious about anything. That's the most underlined verse in the entire Bible.
In terms of emotions, are you a happy pastor now when you see the condition of your church? I'm not talking about the corona. Nobody can be happy about this, but as a pastor, are you happy?
I'm happy, scared. I'm a blend. I'm a blend of happy and scared. Mm-hmm. That's what I am. I'm feeling very stimulated. This lockdown has been, I've got to say, it's been a precious time. I haven't missed the busyness, but the days have flown past because I've been busy. But I haven't been busy running here and running there and mm-hmm. up and down stairs and making, it's been a different type of busy. I've had something to do all of the time. Mm-hmm. I haven't once said, I'm just so bored. I'm just getting sick of this place. This isn't a prison to me. This place is it's a special place because we've got a mission. We're on a mission.
Do you think that this time can serve pastors as a time of reflection and of re-evaluation of what they've been doing and so far?
No question about it. I haven't heard one person in the last while speak about haze machines. I haven't heard one person speak about lighting systems. I haven't heard one person speak about their sound person, their sound engineer, and complain. I've just heard people speaking about how they can keep their flock strong and safe. It's been so healthy.
So how will the church, how will the People's Church get out of this quarantine? How will the People's Church look like?
On the day that we're allowed to gather together again, we're going to have a massive party. It's not that I can do without people. It's not that I don't want to see people. It's not that I don't want to have. That's not what I'm missing. I'm missing my kids. I'm missing my grandkids. I'm missing the hugs. I'm missing the squeezes. I'm missing the high fives. We're going to have one massive party when we get together again. I can't wait for it. But when we get together again, I think we'll have grown up a lot. We'll have matured.
Do you think there'll be any issues of bringing people back from the online mode to the live services?
I don't imagine that. I think that people. I suppose it depends how you're built. I don't think that it's going to be difficult to get people back. I told the people when we broke up, I said, listen, I'm going to look great in color and I'm going to look great in HD, but I'm better in the flesh. And I think that they're going to be back. I've got no doubt about it. And I think we're going to see a whole lot of people that we never saw before. I think that when the church gets together again, the church is going to be stronger, not weaker.
Are you expecting that after this there will be some great times for the church in terms of revival and awakening?
Yes. I do think that. I think that this is like sitting on a thorn. You can't get comfortable if you're sitting on a thorn. You know what I mean by a thorn?
Yeah.
or not on a tin tack. You can't get comfortable. And I think this coronavirus is something that we've sat on, and now it's making us stand up very fast.
So how do we explain to people, because if an outsider or a person who's not a believer hears this conversation, he may say, well, these guys are excited about coronavirus. These guys are happy about it. Well, how do we balance God's will and things that go terribly wrong in this world?
I don't think that there are answers to why coronavirus, but I think that God takes things that are meant for. You know what Joseph said to his brothers? You meant it for harm, but God used it for good.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about them selling him as a slave. And I think that the coronavirus, however it came or wherever it came or wherever it came from, I think that God is using it for the health of the church, the strength of the church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in South Africa, there is, and if you come to South Africa, we can take you there. There is a game reserve. It's called the Addo Elephant Park. And that elephant park had all the animals except for predators. It never had a lion or leopard or anything that could kill the antelope. Until about 10 years ago, they introduced predators. They introduced the pride of lions into that game park. And they observed that the health of all the antelope improved with the lions. Suddenly, they became healthier, stronger, friskier, more alert. Troubles have a good effect on us. We don't look for troubles, and we don't say troubles come from God, but we do say that troubles make us stronger.
How would you encourage the some of the leaders that may feel scared or worried about this situation? Because you work on a national level, and it sounds like a lot of pressure is right now on church leaders.
I got my fair share of Jonahs that are there with saying, "Oh, wait, just wait," and maybe they're right. Maybe it's going to get worse. I think it probably will get worse, but I think that all we can do is just trust in the faithfulness of God, and keep each other strong. We've got to encourage each other. And you know what? I live one day at a time. The manna came in the morning, and they couldn't collect manna for tomorrow. They could only eat manna for today. I've got enough encouragement for today. If it gets worse, I haven't got resources for if it gets worse. But when it gets worse, God will give me the resources at that time.
Right.
I've got Monday's resources on Monday.
I already asked one pastor, but I just wanted to know your opinion about this. So if it really does get lengthy in terms of time,
God forbid.
God forbid. But how are we gonna do certain Christian practices that required community, like baptism? Like I have a friend who has a wedding in June, and I think he's praying the most right now for this virus to disappear. Baptisms, communion is not an issue here because we already talked about it.
In our society, one of the big debates in our society, funerals are very important. Very important. And now they're not allowed to have funerals. And so the people are in uproar because they want to have their funerals. Mm-hmm. And so now they've said you can only have 50 people at a funeral. So what they'll do about that, I don't know. So funerals, weddings, I don't know how it's going to play out. My mind gets tired when I think about it.
About funerals, I was just reading one article, and I realized that even as pastors, we would not be able to help the families to process certain things because you cannot have the access to the body of a person who died from coronavirus, because they just take these bodies away and that's it. If you manage to say goodbye, good for you, but if not, you'll never be able to see him.
I've got nobody close to me who's sick with coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I've got no one near me who's in hospital because of coronavirus. So it hasn't affected me personally yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be in the high risk area, high risk. But I do have friends in the United States who are affected by it, and we pray for daily, and we look for their updates every single day. And a man called Thomas Carpenter, he's an AOG man. They live in Springfield, and he's in intensive care. He's been in intensive care he's been on a ventilator for 10 days. And she goes and parks outside the hospital and prays in the street because she can't go into the hospital. I can't give her advice, and I don't know how she feels. I just think it must be absolutely terrible to be in that situation. But she's being very brave, being very heroic, and she's encouraging us. But again, I think when that time comes, the Lord provides what you need at that time, but you don't have it in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It's like an injection. How do you prepare for an injection? You can't. You bend over and you take it.
Yeah, as a Pentecostal, one of our doctrines, core doctrines, are divine healing, and I think that is also, and our belief in signs and wonders is also being under the test. How strongly do we? Because it's easy to believe in signs and wonders and healing during the times when you don't have virus outbreaks or extreme challenges, but here I think this doctrine is especially relevant and is probably questioned by many people. Is it really working? How would you respond to these thoughts and these questions concerning divine healing?
Well, it's such a hard one to answer, that one. I believe in divine healing as well, and I anoint people with oil for healing, and I trust for their healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will continue to do that,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what happens.
Yeah, but I don't want to go theological here. I would rather discuss it in terms of pastoral care. How do we help people process these things? So yeah.
Just point them to a faithful God,
Mm-hmm.
and point them to our hope. Our currency is hope,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got to keep people with hope,
Mm-hmm.
faith, hope, and love.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to keep hope strong,
Right.
in people, and hope is to do with the future. That the future is better than the present, and we're looking forward to things. We always are looking forward to something. And if I'm sick now, or I've got a loved one who's sick, I'm still looking forward to something good. So we need to think about hope, and we need to brush up on hope.
Yeah.
We need to emphasize hope.
Right.
Study it. Maybe I need to study hope, do a Bible study on hope.
That's good. Yeah, that's one of the topics I think most of the church is going to do these days, and it's relevant. What are the first things that you're going to do besides going to church and meeting all the people? What are some things you're missing right now while being on a lockdown?
I'm with my dogs and the grandkids. I'm missing the grandkids so much.
Oh, I bet. Wow.
Giving them a hug and playing with them and having them jump on top of me, and having that fun, and running on the beach and being free, and free enough to go out on my boat. I'm longing for that. To go out on my rubber duck onto the ocean. I'm looking forward to that so much. And to being able to go to a bookshop and have a nice coffee.
So you can't even go hiking, you can't even go around, you have to stay at home. Wow.
The beaches are closed. The public swimming pools are closed. If you're living in a complex and there's a swimming pool in the complex, you can't use it.
Wow. Well, we're really thankful for this time that you've shared with us and shared your heart. Some of the stories were really important for us to understand the matters that we discussed. So thank you very much, Pastor Geoff. And well, we hope that you can see your grandchildren sooner.
Thank you
And
so much.
thank you guys for watching us. This was Pastor Geoff Bond. And yeah, God bless you.